Welcome to the Perfect Life Awakening Show, hosted by Royce Morales. Royce has been a transformational facilitator, teaching groundbreaking, spiritually based courses for more than 4 decades. She is the author of 3 books about her teachings. Join Royce as she takes you on a journey into how to live your best life and find your true purpose through discovering the origins of subconscious, disempowering notions and releasing them. She talks with experts and inspiring people just like you who learned to trust their intuitive inner wisdom, which led to life-changing shifts. Today, her guests live an empowered existence and are helping change the world to a higher consciousness place based on truth and love. You deserve to awaken to, align with, and embody your true self and live a life filled with love. Transform yourself from triggered to empowered and create your perfect life. Here is your host, Royce Morales.
Hello, welcome to my show. I'm so glad everybody is here. We had snow and I'm sitting here freezing. So I am really excited today. My guest just sounds really interesting what she does. And we're going to talk about well-being. It's something that, everybody hears that expression or uses that expression all the time, but what does it really mean? And more importantly, how do we achieve it? So that's the theme of our show today. And let me introduce my guest to you. Jamie Lerner is a master social worker, and she has an integrative approach to what well-being really means. And she's going to explain all that. She helps people reframe their experiences and change their storylines, something we've talked about a lot here, in order to come up with ways to stay inspired, balanced, and in alignment with their true purpose, which is another thing I talk a lot about here. She's passionate about the endless everyday opportunities to create and sustain ongoing long-term relationships with yourself. What other person can you have such a long-term relationship with? And she also offers a really interesting service that she calls the Quickie, and she'll explain what that is about. And I just got a message of someone's phones. My phone is certainly not ringing that I know of. But anyway, technology lately, I don't know. Mercury's not in retrograde, but it's all crazy for me lately. Anyway, she's going to talk about this texting option that can really help you check back in with yourself instantly. And she can help you reframe your thoughts and really get that state of well-being all the time. So welcome, Jamie.
Thank you so much.
I'm so
Great to be here.
Oh yeah, we had talked about technical difficulties. We had all kinds of difficulties getting this interview arranged. So first of all, let me get some background about you. You say that you were born with kind of a sense of knowing, like why you're here, and you actually chose a family that encouraged that. That's pretty amazing. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I was born with the knowing, and I think we all are. And then through just time and society and life, we tend to get further and further away from that inner knowing, inner being. However, I did not. I stayed very true to myself, and I did. I think that we do pick our parents from the heavens above. And I picked an amazing family that in so many ways reminded me every single moment to remain connected to myself, because there was no other connection for me growing up that I could really look to. So, once again, I think we all come in that way. And if we could just be a little bit more tuned in, then and relax and receive that, I think that we would be able to maintain our natural state of well-being, which I think is our birthright.
Yes, I absolutely agree. And it's interesting when people finally get back in touch with it and they realize, oh, wow, it was there all the time, but it was suppressed and denied and ignored and judged. So, yeah, that's so great. So, how do you find, I guess we should just jump right in. Let's talk about how you define well being. What does that mean to you?
Well being is a connected state of being healthy, happy, and prosperous. And the key is connected. When we are connected to ourselves, we feel really good. And I think that most people don't allow themselves that option to feel good. So they don't recognize that as well being or connection. So I assist people in assisting themselves to just getting back to that place where moment to moment you can make some choices and feel good. And I think the more we relax into that, the more familiar it becomes. And then the more we can choose it for ourselves because no one else can do that for us. Um, I think we're misled with all of the self-help books and ways that we are drawn outside of ourselves. But that connection really comes from within. How can we tune in and be guided from the inside? And that's a very individual journey and experience and a great option.
Yes. And what is the technique that you use to help people do that?
Well, I think that first they have to understand it's possible.
Yes.
A lot of people, they don't really believe that that is possible. But at first, I ask people to just sit with themselves and try to isolate the mind chatter because we are always distracted and there is this running tape in the background that we're not even familiar with. It doesn't even matter where it came from. But I think once we can understand that that distraction is there, that is helpful. um, Usually this distraction is negative. It's not like we're unconsciously telling ourselves how wonderful we are. It's usually the opposite.
Yes.
When people isolate it, I think all we can do is laugh because you would never speak to another person the way you speak to yourself.
That's
And
very true.
so
Yes.
to isolate it and to laugh about it because I think it's very important that we step into this process with levity and humor. This doesn't have to be heavy and hard, and it can really be very fun and light. So that is really a good first step for people.
Yeah. How do you, I mean, that sounds awesome, but how do you get people there? Because we're so programmed to invalidate ourselves and to belittle ourselves and to not be able to laugh at ourselves. What do you do?
I ask people to sit with themselves first thing in the morning if they're a morning person or whatever time they think that they can be the most present with themselves and just ask themselves what is one thing that you appreciate about yourself. Not what is one thing that someone else appreciates about you, but just one thing that you appreciate about yourself. And I think that when we start the day like that, then we're already um, inner directed. We're already thinking about what is going on within. And that is not really easy for people.
Yeah.
But for just for 5 minutes, just to isolate, or pick one thing. And it could change every day. But I think that's once again to look within and to ask yourself something that you like or really appreciate about you.
Okay. So, what about what should people do with those little voices that go, "Oh yeah, 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 you appreciate that, but what about all this other stuff?" What do you recommend that they do with that stuff?
Well, because the exercise is so specific and time limited, what I'm hoping is within that 5 minutes, people can really focus on just one message about themselves that's positive. And that's it. You know, And I think it gets easier and easier over time because most of the time we're not being asked to look within. We're being asked to be directed from outside.
Yeah.
So it's little baby steps. And I think that when somebody asks you to do that exercise and you're invested, then you take it more seriously. You will do it as opposed to just one day deciding, okay, I'm going to try this. So there is a little bit of accountability, which is good.
Hmm. And so you work with people individually to do this. So does that give them the accountability?
Absolutely. It does give them the accountability to themselves, which is also very new. most, most people don't want to be accountable or to take personal responsibility. I
Yeah.
mean, this society does not reward people for that. This
No.
society rewards the victim.
Yes.
But this is not a commentary about the society. It's an opportunity to make a little shift so that you can begin to redirect yourself inward, where all that good stuff is.
Yeah. So you said that we're rewarded for being victims. I talk a lot about that in my program because that is, we get so many rewards and payoffs and attention and pity and rescuing and all of that stuff. What do you tell people about that? How do they get past that in your program?
Well, and this is not a program. So, I really assist people from where they are in that moment and where they want to go. And, some people are not really that interested. And, they just want to make a little shift, and that's great. Um, I think that most people, they have a lot of attention and they are encouraged to tell their story and to accentuate it in a way that's dramatic and often not even true because it does draw a larger audience.
Yeah.
But how are you actually feeling within? And I don't think people take the time to check in with themselves and say, is this even true? Like, this story has gotten so big, but it's giving me so much attention. It's like, I really can't edit it now. Everyone already thinks this, that, and the other. But
Yes.
somehow all that attention is not sustaining. It doesn't allow us to really be true to who we are, to live in our now, or to feel good about ourselves.
Yeah.
It's very artificial. So I mean, if you're telling your story and it feels great and you're thriving, great. But if not, I just encourage people to just do a little fact checking and maybe, I don't know, change the tone of it, maybe change a few words of it so that you can really feel better telling your story, updating it a little bit, and stepping into a better feeling life that you want to live.
Yeah. I find that most people don't even realize they're telling the same story. you
No,
know?
they don't. No, it's so incessant. They have no clue.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. My course used to be 20 weeks. Now it's 10. And it used to be live and now it's all remote. But I had a student for probably 20 or 40 weeks because there were two different sessions. And she would sit in the class, and every single week she would tell the same story. It was like a tape literally that was running, and she had like a blank expression. There was no emotion. It was just she had to get this story out. And everybody in the class would just sit there and just go, oh my God, she's telling the same story again. Until finally one day, somebody just like gently raised his hand and said, you have told that story every single week for 40 weeks. And it was like she woke up. She didn't even realize it. It was so interesting. So in that case, it actually shifted her just to even be conscious of the fact that she was doing that.
yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. So, okay. What about guilt? How do you deal with people that are stuck in guilt?
When I grew up as a humanistic Jew, and we learned at a very early age that guilt is a self-inflicted emotion, and there was no need for that. So I understand guilt in terms of where people go. And a lot of it comes from where they're from. A lot of it comes from a religious home or a religious faith. But I think guilt becomes an excuse for us to keep us where we are. And I think that if people would just say, "Okay, I feel really guilty about this, so I can't shift," then at least they're taking personal responsibility. They're making a choice that they're going to use the emotion of guilt as a reason to stay stuck. And I applaud that because that is a very conscious decision that you have made. On the other hand, if you're interested in unpacking whatever that is, and that doesn't mean going back into, childhood, none of that's necessary, but just kind of unpacking some of the feelings that go along with some of the language, then I think that there's a really easy way to shift out of that place into something that feels better and, yeah, something that is better.
Do you encourage that people try to clean up areas of their life that they're still feeling kind of stuck in due to guilt?
I don't think we need to clean it up. I do think that maybe we could soften the tone of it and just move forward. Uh, Looking back is not necessary unless it feels great. And I encourage people, if something feels good, look at it all day long. But if it doesn't feel good, then let's figure out a way to move it forward so it's more relevant to your now. So much of what people are reliving has nothing to do with their now, but they can't make the distinction because they're so invested in the story.
Yeah. I find that there's so much value in looking back because it starts to put pieces of your life together and starts to show you where you're stuck and why and how to get past it. But yeah, I find a lot of times people get stuck in looking back and living in the past versus I'm going to remember that incident, let it go, and see how it assisted me, it allowed me to grow and do something about it now so that I can completely let it go.
So I was psychotherapist for a long time, and what I found is that was not helping anybody except to keep them where they are. And I left that profession because it didn't feel good to me that I was enabling people to remain stuck. And now, once again, I really don't think we need to look back unless we're going to reframe it and use it as a way to identify a superpower in our now.
Yes. And that's part
So,
of it. Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. Because I find that there are sometimes I'll remember something and realize, oh my gosh, that was really trying to teach me and empower me. And I completely misconstrued it or, misunderstood it. So, yeah, there's a lot of value in that. Definitely. Yeah.
well, I think that if we can look back and um, think about those things from our here and now adult perspective, then we do identify it differently. The
Mhm.
problem is that we don't take the time to do that. And we have dragged into our now how we felt about what had happened when we were children or younger or powerless or vulnerable, whatever those things were. And that's just not the case anymore. We're in a completely different place. And once we step into personal power, where I think all our power is, we could really identify how those things have helped us to be in a much better place in our here and now.
Yeah. Yeah. So, tell us a little bit more about the techniques that you use. You mentioned the 5 minutes every morning. What other techniques do you use to keep people or get people back into the now and stop telling those same stories? What do you do?
I talk a lot with people about everything is just a moment. So if we could slow things down, like our thoughts, our feelings, mind chatter, and understand that it's just moment by moment. I think that's really helpful for people because um, people in their minds are moving way too fast. And I think technology is not helping at all. In many ways, it encourages us to be very impatient with ourselves and not allow us to experience anything in the moment. So I think that when people do that, they're a little bit relieved because the enormity of our thoughts really create a lot of anxiety for us unconsciously.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
So to be able to just kind of take a deep breath and understand that there's nothing urgent about any of these things that you're wanting to shift into or out of. It's just one moment at a time.
It's interesting that you said you were talking about technology. I'm currently about to publish my latest weekly blog on Royce's ramblings, and it's on Substack. Just a little commercial, and it's all about being in the moment and how I use eating dinner as an example. I find that you sit there and you made this beautiful dinner for yourself and you're sitting there eating it and texting and thinking about your next day at work and concerned about taking the dog for a walk or whatever it is, and you're not really focused on eating that beautiful dinner. And we do that all the time with everything. Yeah.
I think people need permission
Yeah.
to take the time to sit and eat a meal and focus just on their meal or on a lovely conversation with a family member or whatever it is. Because I think that we feel that we have so much to do
Mhm.
that there is no time to just sit and be.
Yeah. And it's so sad because you reach the end of the meal and it's like, oh, did I taste that? You know, I used to love watching cooking shows, and part of what I loved about it is when they would present the creation to the judge, and the judge would take one bite, and they would have all these things to say about it versus gobbling it down and reaching the end and realizing I didn't taste a thing. Or the example I use in my blog is I was so when I had my son, he when he was a baby, I was terrified all the time about being a mother. I had all these ideas of what it meant to be a mother, and I had to make sure he survived, and I had to feed him the right food, and I had to change him at the perfect time, and what if he didn't take a nap? I mean, all these things going on all the time, that I look back on that experience and I don't remember one day of just enjoying having this beautiful baby in my life, and how sad that is. It's just so sad. And my son now, he's grown up, and he'll remember certain things and tell me these stories, and I'm like, God, was I there? I know I was, but where was I?
Well, and that goes back to the idea of trusting yourself. And I think that we must trust ourselves. We are our own best expert. We know best for ourselves all the time. Nobody knows better for you than you. Now, you don't know better for somebody else, but
Yeah.
you know better for you. And it's interesting that people that don't know anything about knowing best for themselves know everything about what everybody else should be doing.
Yes. Yes, definitely. Yeah. So, okay, it's just about halfway through our chat. So we'll take a little break. I'm talking to Jamie Lerner, and we're talking about well-being, and we will be right back.
Om Times TV. Do you crave joy but feel stuck? Do you go through life feeling constantly triggered and frustrated? Fear is likely the culprit, and subconscious fear is likely sabotaging you. Perfect Life Awakening is a time-tested, spiritually based approach to inner transformation created by Royce Morales. For over 40 years, she has helped people get to the origins of subconscious fears and ultimately help them find their true purpose and a life full of joy. Sign up for Perfect Life Awakening today at roycemorales.com. You deserve to go from triggered to empowered, shifting your life with Perfect Life Awakening. Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Om Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Om Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Om Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Om Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Om Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Om Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
I want to eat apples and bananas. I need to eat apples and bananas. Why can't I eat apples and bananas?
Support the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks to help provide meals to those in need. Join us at feedingamerica.org.
Welcome back. I am talking with Jamie Lerner, and we're talking about well-being and stories and shifting things and all kinds of good stuff. So I never did ask you, I guess I should have asked you this in the beginning. How did you get involved in doing what you do? What is your personal story about that?
I always knew I wanted to be involved in psychology somehow, some way. So I studied psychology in school. I got my master's in social work. I had some amazing internships. And it's interesting. I really feel like a lot of my inner knowing helped me help other people. And it's people are fascinating and people are amazing. And I really, and so resilient and so unaware of how gifted we are. I mean, we are truly gifted in the sense that ask and it is given, which people are like, come on, really? Yes, it's yes. The question is, can you stop and hear, allow yourself to receive what you are asking? So anyway, that's how I got involved in this. And I think that these conversations about connection are some of the most important conversations, because if we are not connected with ourselves, we really cannot be connected with others.
That's cool.
Yeah. And we're all craving that connection from the outside. And that's really not the connection that is gratifying. I think that it can be accentuated when you're connected with yourself. You can absolutely have amazing connected relationships with other people if you want. But the real gift is getting back to yourself, trusting yourself, knowing yourself, loving yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and being present with yourself. I find that I don't think there's anything anybody really wants in life other than somebody to be present with them. And I don't think there's anything more than we want to be present with ourselves and to access that knowing and that brilliance and that wisdom and that intuition that we all have. So, yeah, that's so true. So, okay, you're talking about changing your story and changing your life. How First of all, how do you really define story? What does that really mean to you?
I think it's the information that we were fed and we just recite. Like for most people, they have no idea what their story is. They were just given these labels and these it was like given a script and they believed it. And so they recited it because it gave them attention earlier. And now they're getting attention now. But I don't know. Everybody's story is so different. And there are so many different versions of the story.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because we update everything. We have updates on our computer and our phone and, every aspect of our life. But to be able to think about how can you update your story? So literally, you are like talking about what's going on in the here and now. And
Yeah.
it could, once again, just be a tone. It could be a few words. It could be a whole paragraph. Yeah. And I think when people get permission to like step out of what they have been reciting and living that doesn't feel good, I think that they feel relieved. It's like shedding a skin.
Yeah. Yeah. I find that people can be told a story about themselves. Like I had many stories that were told about me. She's creative. She's, a hippie, all those things that were fed into me um, early on. And I too found myself believing those stories and feeling like in my family, those stories were not okay. Therefore, you are a failure, that kind of addition to them. And I found that I had to discover the real source of why I would even buy into those stories. What made me say, "Yeah, they're right, I'm a failure," And by resolving those beliefs about myself, I could completely let go of those stories because they weren't the truth. So, yeah. I keep hearing that buzzing sound too. I don't know what that is.
I do have my phone on vibrate. Let me turn it off.
Oh, okay, that's what it is. There we go.
Yeah. I'm
Anyway,
sorry.
that's okay. Technology. So finding the source, finding the key in terms of why I would buy into what people were saying about me was really empowering. Do you ever do that kind of thing with clients?
Yes, but I don't really think it matters why they bought into it. I think that the awareness that they did buy into it is enough. And then for them to be able to identify for themselves what is your story written by you.
Yeah.
That's where people get really lost. Like they don't really have a clue.
Hmm.
So to give them a sense that it's okay not to know and yet feel around for it, because if we are living a story that someone else has scripted for us, we don't feel good. We don't feel authentic. We don't feel connected. Kind of like we feel like fake. So that is a really disconnected feeling.
Yeah, definitely.
And there's a lot of people that are financially successful, that have a lot of friends, that have the perfect life. They have a marriage and children and this, and they're just so unhappy. And they feel so bad about being unhappy because they have everything that they were told, you know, makes us whole. And it's just, I don't know. It's becoming worse with um I don't, Instagram and all of those other social platforms,
Yeah.
because there's no room for us to really say, no, like this isn't enough. But it's not enough.
Yeah. And we see the people looking happy. Yeah.
Well, it's that sense of like, what is missing.
Yeah. So let's talk about what's going on in the world. I deal with a lot of people every day, plus my emails, plus the news feed, plus everything I'm seeing. There's so much
Noise.
noise that people are so confused and so freaked out and so what do I do? And, all of that stuff that's going on. And how did this happen? And what's going to happen in the future? How do you help people that are going through that kind of turmoil right now?
Well, I do not suggest anything to anyone that I have not tried myself. I
Yeah.
can tell you that. My mantra is be here now. And I find myself saying that to myself 100 times a day because it is so easy to be distracted and to be concerned and to be overwhelmed with just what is going on in the world, especially right now. I think that our responsibility to ourselves is to stay focused on how can we feel good. People are like, what are you talking about? Like, how can you feel good? I'm like, that's the most important thing that we can do for ourselves. To focus on one or two things that make us feel good and just to stay there. Because to be anxious, we are not good for ourselves and we're not good for others. And most people are just paralyzed and shut down. So I would say turn off the news and maybe watch something very neutral once a day to get caught up. But I don't think you're going to miss anything. And that's our fear that we're going to miss something that we really need to know. Well, actually, they just keep repeating the same thing over and over and over again. I was here in the fires. People were calling me and texting me and so worried about me because all they did was replay the fires over and over and over again. And I said, there's so much more happening here. People are really coming together and helping each other. You would not believe the efforts people are making to assist people who have lost everything. And people are like, what are you talking about? Well, of course, they were not reporting any of those things. And there are a lot of those things that we can be putting our attention on, other than what we're being fed by, mainstream media.
Yeah.
So it's a
So,
choice, a choice, a choice, a choice. One
is.
minute, the next minute, it's another choice and a choice and a choice. And the more connected to yourself you are, the more you tend to put yourself first and make a better choice for yourself. That doesn't mean you're going to choose for someone else. You're not going to tell someone else to turn off the TV or tell someone else to focus on something that feels good. But to do it for yourself, yeah.
And what about people that feel, well, kind of like what you were saying, you felt drawn to help people? What about people that look at the situation and go, I need to do something?
Well, you cannot do anything for anyone else until you are feeling better yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not possible. So, to get to that place where you feel good enough to be able to offer your assistance, I think that's amazing. But from a place of being disconnected and anxious, and no, you are not good for anybody. So I tell people, if you can't do it for yourself, do it for other people.
Yeah. And so, what about emotions? I know emotions are just triggers, bottom line. But what do you do, even if you're not watching the news, even if you're far away from the fires, it naturally brings up emotions and fears and triggers and anxiety and all that stuff. What do you tell people to do with those emotions? Because I think it's really important to not suppress what we're feeling, to recognize it and feel it and get it out. So what is your feeling about that?
I think that we must become more emotionally intelligent.
Yes.
And I have to say, it's much easier to work with men than women. Men tend to be more emotionally intelligent, which doesn't mean they're cut off, but they're able to compartmentalize things and really experience emotions differently. And I think that is helpful. Women, we have a tendency where we experience an emotion and then it kind of takes on a life of its own. And it's almost like we get run away with that emotion. And I think when we feel that way, we really need to catch ourselves and just take a step back and take a breath and ask ourselves, how can we manage what we're feeling right now that feels so big? And that's the only question. We don't have to understand where it's coming from, what it's triggering, what it says. We just have to manage it so that we can experience it in a way that's a little bit more intelligent.
Does that mean you feel it, but you don't take action with it or dramatize it, that kind of thing?
Yeah, you feel it, but you don't become it.
Hmm.
And women tend to become it. And because that's our tendency and that's our nature. Um, and I think that it doesn't serve us. It really doesn't.
So tell us about your book that you co-wrote.
Mhm. It's called The Ever Loving Essence of You.
Mhm.
Um, it is a book about creating a moment to moment connected relationship with yourself. It's very loving, it's very easy. There's no psychobabble jargon in it. It's very old, it's like 13 years old. I read it every month to make sure that if there was something I wanted to update or change, and there's not, except for I have a reference to the BlackBerry, which we no longer have anymore.
Oh, BlackBerry, I remember
Yeah,
that.
that's right. Um, and I think that it's helpful because there are some specific exercises people can do on their own. You can open it at any page and read that. And so, yeah, it's a really nice option for people.
Okay. And the last thing that I'd love for you to focus on to give people an idea of how this works, tell us about the quickie
Okay.
you do. I love the title.
The quickie, a lovely texting option. So I came out with a quickie before COVID, and it worked great because of COVID. Um, and I really like it because it allows people to be accountable for what they're asking for and then what they're receiving. So it is an option for people they pay by a block of time, and then they text me anytime that they have a question or an issue or whatever, and then I get back to them and text them back. And what's interesting is that people, when they go back and read what they wrote, what I wrote, just the whole interaction, they realize that they actually knew for themselves all along. And that is the beauty of texting. I really like it because when we speak to one another, we are only hearing the other person from where we are with ourselves in that moment, which doesn't really allow us to remember how that conversation went in the next moment. But in texting, you've written this down, you can go back and read it. And I think it's a really brilliant way for people to understand that they knew for themselves. So it's very empowering and it provides connection, which is emotionally intelligent. Because when you're texting, you're not going to go on and on and on and on and on emotionally. It's going to be a more abbreviated, more to the moment kind of experience, which I think is helpful.
So give us an example. I'm trying to wrap my head around what that looks like. Somebody texts you and asks your advice, or
Or they state that they're having a situation that they're not comfortable with, that they want to shift out of, and they explain the situation. They, and then I text them back whatever it is that I do text them back. Then they text me back. And it just is this open-ended conversation back and forth. But really, if you think about it, it's almost like I'm the conduit because they do know. You give someone enough time to present something, to go back and read it, they know. You always know for yourself. You don't know how or why you know, but you always know. That brilliant thing called intuition, use it because that's our guidance. That's our internal guidance. And we need to trust it. Over time, I think we can trust it. We can go back and say, I remember a time when I had a feeling this, that, and the other. I didn't listen to it, but I should have. Because I never have heard anyone say, I should not have listened to myself.
Right.
You hear people all day long say, I should have listened to myself.
Yep. Yeah. That's interesting. That's when I teach a lot about intuition, and my very short definition of intuition is knowing that you know and not knowing how or why. Exactly what
Exactly.
you just said. Yeah.
Yes. And people can really relate to that.
Yeah. So, in other words, in the quickie, you are kind of channeling their intuition in a way so that they can say, "Oh, yeah, I knew that." Is that
I
basically?
think it's just an unfolding, and I am just the conduit for it. It's just the expression of the experience for whatever that client is in those moments and the next moments and the next moment.
Mhm.
The real, I think, aha is when they go back and read what they wrote, what I wrote, what they wrote, what I wrote. Then they can really identify, like, oh yeah, I
Yeah.
did know. So it's really all about self-empowerment. And I think as professionals, it's so important that we step out of our ego and give our clients the opportunity to help themselves. It has nothing to do with me. I am just the conduit. It's all you.
That's
And
great.
that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. I always tell my students on the very first week of meeting them, do not ever ask me for advice because I will not give it. All I will do is pose the question back to you so that you can learn to trust yourself and your own intuition. So, yeah, that's so important. And what about? I read on your bio that you talk about allowing what is, and I refer to that as non-resistance. So allowing people the freedom of moving about life without judgment of bad or good. How do you explain that to people?
Allowing is a practice.
Yes,
and
definitely.
and I think that the only way we can be allowing with others if we're allowing with ourselves first. So to feel good about where we are and who we are allows us to then feel good about other people and to give them the opportunity to be where they are and who they are without us putting conditions on them. So it's so lovely when you get to that place within yourself that whatever decisions you are making for yourself feel so good that you're not interested in telling other people what they should do or who they should be. You just are able to experience them and meet them where they are. And that is the truest connection.
Yeah.
That is the big prize.
Yeah. But how do you I keep asking you because I'm so like focused on um, helping people get to the point where they can resolve that need to label good and bad and judgment and whatever. How do you is
We
it
don't
just
even know we're in judgment. So, every single time that we have a thought about somebody else, and it could be a complete stranger, what they're wearing, what they're doing, how they're driving, and we catch ourselves and we laugh, like we will begin to understand that probably 99% of our day in our mind, we're in judgment of somebody else,
yes,
which is true projection. This is exactly what we are feeling about ourselves. The
yes,
only thing to do is to laugh about it because it's really funny. And then you're laughing all day long. And then you realize, like, oh my goodness, like I'm a little bit disconnected from myself that I have all these opinions about other people. What can I do in this moment to get back to myself? But we must do it with laughter and levity, not criticism, not putting ourselves down, um, not punishing ourselves because it just is. And so what? The important thing is that we recognize it and we understand that what we're doing when we're in judgment is avoiding ourselves.
yeah, exactly.
Oh, and that's okay.
Yeah, yeah, that's so important what you just said. I have every other Wednesday I do a show that I call It's All Mirrors. And I talk about that, how the judgment that we have on others is really the self-judgment that we have that we're in denial about, you know? So that's,
I don't know if we're in denial or we just don't even have a clue.
yeah,
I mean, I don't think people are that aware that it's projection. So, but to understand what projection is, I think it's good um, to have a concept of it and to be entertained by it.
yeah,
That it's almost like use every single person as a mirror for yourself,
yes,
you know, in a good way, because they are helping you realize something about yourself in that moment.
yep,
What you do with it, that's a choice.
yeah, yeah. It's always, whenever I talk about, I call it mirroring. Whenever I talk about mirroring, people, the immediate question is, well, are you saying that certain president of the United States is my mirror? I said, yeah, a big, expansive, magnetized mirror, yes, or magnification mirror of something that we don't want to see about ourselves. And I think that's why we're going through some of the stuff as a society, because we really need to face some of those things about our. Oh, there we go. Technology. Sorry, I spoke the
Yeah.
truth, and there we go. We get disconnected. Anyway, so yeah,
I think you're absolutely right. And I think the biggest message is that we are misunderstanding is that we are missing personal responsibility. And
yeah,
we have a president that is mirroring just that.
yes,
And I have to say, it is a very hard pill to swallow.
yeah, it is. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, usually when I give that information, well, nowadays it immediately goes to the president, but it used to go to, are you saying Hitler is our mirror? Well,
I
yeah,
think we've had examples, continually of
yes,
where we are as a society. And
yeah, definitely.
no,
So, in the last couple of minutes that we have together, tell us how to reach you, what is available to people, your book, just promote yourself.
I have a website. It's www.jamie-lerner, and everything that you'd ever want to know about how I work with people and other resources and podcasts. This podcast will be on there, and the book is on there. And I've made it so easy for people to read through it that they would know immediately, like if they would want to work with me or not. A lot of people don't, which is fine. I think it's really important that you choose
Yeah,
and you have many choices of who you work with and how you work with whoever that is.
yeah.
Um, and that's it.
And the title of your book again?
It's Ever Loving Essence of You, and it's available on Amazon.
Okay, great. And to do the quickie text thing that you offer.
There's a link on there, and people just buy a block of time, and they can use it all at once. They can use it over a year. It doesn't expire. It just gives people lots of different options.
And
So,
they don't ever have to talk to you in person. They don't have to go
no.
through any kind of rigmarole to.
So I found that my website is so interesting that it really allows people to feel connected. So it's almost like people feel like they've already met me when we start working together.
Yeah. And I'm
So
assuming it's all done remote.
yes, everything is done remote.
Everything
That's
is
right.
remote
Yes,
nowadays. Yes.
it's lovely. It means you could be anywhere at any time and still connect with somebody. And that is the part of technology I do like.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much, Jamie. And I appreciate what you're doing and keep up the good work. I'm glad you listened to yourself. And just to remind everybody that I will have my It's All Mirrors show on every other Wednesday. And I have this show every other Wednesday. So I'm here every Wednesday in some format. And I thank you so much for tuning in. And I thank you so much, Jamie Lerner, for doing what you're doing.
Thank you for inviting me.
Sure. Yes.